December 16, 1944. Dawn breaks over the Ardennes, a dense forest straddling Belgium and Luxembourg. Frost clings to pine needles and a thick fog blankets the rolling hills. The air is sharp, carrying the faint rumble of distant engines. American soldiers of the 28th Infantry Division huddle in shallow foxholes along the Siegfried Line, their breath visible in the biting cold. Rifles rest against makeshift barricades, and the men, weary from months of combat, scan the mist for movement. They've been told this sector is quiet, a place to rest, regroup, and prepare for a final push into Germany. But the ground trembles faintly now, a low growl growing louder. Across the line, German Panzer divisions, shrouded by the fog, creep forward in silence. Operation Wacht am Rhein, Hitler's last desperate gamble, has begun. By midday, shells will scream and U.S. lines will buckle under the weight of 200,000 German troops. Yet, in this chaos, a few resourceful tank crews prepare to unleash an unexpected defense. This desperate stand would reveal American ingenuity at its finest. By the summer of 1944, the tides of World War II had shifted decisively against Nazi Germany. Allied forces, bolstered by the successful D-Day landings on June 6, had broken out from Normandy and swept across France. Paris fell on August 25, liberating the city after 4 years of occupation. American, British, and Canadian troops pushed eastward, crossing the Seine River and advancing toward the German border. The U.S. First Army, under Lieutenant General Courtney Hodges, and the Third Army, commanded by Lieutenant General George S. Patton, moved with relentless speed. Supply lines stretched thin, but the momentum seemed unstoppable. German defenses crumbled along the Western Front, with entire divisions surrendering en masse. Hitler, isolated in his Berlin bunker and Wolf's Lair headquarters, refused to accept defeat. His armies faced collapse on multiple fronts. In the east, Soviet forces closed in after Operation Bagration decimated Army Group Center. In Italy, Allied progress slowed but persisted. Resources dwindled off, fuel shortages grounded Luftwaffe planes, and raw materials for weapons production evaporated under relentless bombing. Yet Hitler fixated on a counteroffensive. He believed a bold strike could fracture the Allied coalition, forcing negotiations. The Ardennes region emerged as the target, a 75-mile forested stretch lightly defended by American troops, where Germany had succeeded in 1940 during the Blitzkrieg. Planning began in September 1944 under utmost secrecy. Hitler personally oversaw Operation Wacht am Rhein, later renamed Herbstnebel to mask its scale. Generalfeldmarschall Gerd von Rundstedt and Generalfeldmarschall Walter Model coordinated the assault. 3 armies assembled: the 6th Panzer Army under SS Oberstgruppenführer Sepp Dietrich in the north, the 5th Panzer Army led by General Hasso von Manteuffel in the center, and the 7th Army commanded by General Erich Brandenberger in the south. Over 200,000 troops, 1,000 tanks, including new King Tigers, and 2,000 artillery pieces gathered. Fuel reserves, scraped from every corner, aimed to sustain a drive to Antwerp, splitting Allied lines and capturing vital ports. American intelligence underestimated the threat. The Ardennes sector, deemed a ghost front, hosted fatigued units like the 99th and 106th Infantry Divisions for rest and training. Veterans from earlier campaigns mixed with green replacements. The U.S. 8th Corps, part of Hodges' First Army, held the line with about 80,000 men. Dense woods and poor roads favored defense, but harsh winter weather now, fog and sub-zero temperatures complicated logistics. Allied air superiority, a key advantage, would be neutralized by overcast skies. As December approached, German forces positioned stealthily. Elite units, including the 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte, SS Adolf Hitler, prepared for breakthroughs. Hitler demanded total surprise, forbidding reconnaissance flights that might alert the Allies. On the American side, complacency set in. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, focused on broader offensives toward the Rhine. Patton's Third Army pivoted south toward the Saar, while British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery planned northern thrusts. No one anticipated the ferocity ahead. The bazooka, officially the M1 rocket launcher, entered this equation as a humble yet pivotal tool. Developed in 1942 by U.S. Army Ordnance under Dr. Edward Uhl, it fired 2.36-inch high-explosive anti-tank rockets effective up to 300 yards. Weighing just 13 pounds, it armed infantry against armored threats. By late 1944, improved M9 models with better sights and folding stocks equipped U.S. forces. Tank crews, typically reliant on their Sherman's 75mm guns, began adapting these. For close-quarters defense amid the Ardennes' tight terrain, German tanks, superior in armor like the Panthers' 80mm frontal plating, outmatched Shermans in direct duels. Yet, American production outpaced Axis capabilities. Over 49,000 Shermans rolled out versus Germany's 6,000 Panthers. Logistics favored the Allies. Vast supply depots near Liege held millions of gallons of fuel and ammunition. As German artillery calibrated final barrages, U.S. soldiers brewed coffee in the pre-dawn chill, unaware of the storm brewing across the lines. This fragile calm shattered at 05:30 hours on December 16th as the German barrage erupted. Continue to Section 2 of Context. Sexpertise, thought for 8's context, so background. Section 2 artillery shells rained down on American positions, splintering trees and cratering the frozen earth. The barrage lasted an hour, a deafening prelude that masked the advance of German infantry and armor. In the northern sector, Dietrich's 6th Panzer Army targeted the Losheim Gap, aiming to punch through the 99th Infantry Division. Vicious fighting erupted around Elsenborn Ridge, where U.S. artillery from the 2nd Infantry Division responded with counter-battery fire. To the south, Manteuffel's 5th Panzer Army struck the 28th and 106th Divisions, encircling 2 regiments of the 106th near Schnee-Eifel. Over 7,500 Americans surrendered there by December 19th, the largest U.S. capitulation since Bastogne. Fog and snow grounded Allied aircraft, denying air support. German paratroopers, dropped behind lines under Operation Satissaire, sowed confusion but achieved little. English-speaking commandos in Operation Greif, led by Otto Skorzeny, donned U.S. uniforms to infiltrate and sabotage. They spread rumors, switched road signs and guarded bridges, heightening paranoia among American troops. Checkpoints multiplied, with soldiers quizzing each other on baseball stars and state capitals to verify identities. Bastogne, a key road hub in Belgium, became a focal point. The 101st Airborne Division, rushed from reserve in Reims, arrived on December 18th under Acting Commander Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe. They fortified the town alongside remnants of the 10th Armored Division's Combat Command B. German forces, including the 2nd Panzer Division, encircled Bastogne by December 20th, demanding surrender. McAuliffe's one-word reply, "Oh, nuts," epitomized American defiance. U.S. tank crews faced dire odds. Sherman tanks, with their thin 51mm side armor, proved vulnerable to German 88mm guns. Yet mobility and numbers offered advantages. The M4A3E8 variant, with improved 76mm guns, began appearing in units like the 4th Armored Division. Crews adapted quickly, using hull-down positions in the hilly terrain. The bazooka proved invaluable here. Its shaped charge warhead could penetrate up to 100mm of armor at close range, ideal for ambushes in the Ardennes' narrow valleys and dense woods. Logistics strained both sides. Germans, low on fuel, relied on capturing Allied dumps. They seized some near Stavelot but fell short of their objectives. Americans, despite initial disruptions, benefited from vast reserves. The Red Ball Express, though scaled back, had stockpiled supplies. Engineers repaired bridges and cleared roads under fire, ensuring reinforcements flowed. By December 22nd, the German advance stalled. Patton's Third Army pivoted north from Lorraine, covering 100 miles in 48 hours through blizzards. His forces relieved Bastogne on December 26th, breaking the siege. In the north, U.S. defenses at Hatton and La Glaise held firm, destroying dozens of King Tigers mired in mud. Amid this, U.S. resourcefulness shone. Tank crews, often outgunned, improvised. They welded scrap metal for extra armor, used sandbags to deflect shots, and coordinated with infantry bazooka teams. In one instance, near Malmedy, GIs from the 30th Infantry Division halted a panzer column by targeting tracks with bazookas, forcing abandonment. The battle's scale dwarfed expectations. Over 600,000 Americans eventually committed, against 400,000 Germans. Casualties mounted. U.S. losses reached 89,000, including 19,000 killed. Germans suffered 98,000. The Malmedy Massacre on December 17th, where SS troops executed 84 U.S. prisoners. Hardened resolve, as the front stabilized, attention turned to the human elements driving survival. The bazooka stood as a testament to American engineering ingenuity amid the frozen chaos of the Ardennes. Developed in 1942, the M1 rocket launcher fired a 2.36-inch high-explosive anti-tank rocket propelled by an electric ignition system. Its shaped charge warhead could penetrate up to 4 inches of armor, creating a focused jet of molten metal to ignite fuel or ammunition inside enemy tanks. By December 1944, upgraded M9 models addressed early flaws, featuring a magneto-ignition to counter cold-weather battery failures and a folding stock for easier handling. Weighing only 15 pounds when assembled, it allowed mobility in the dense forests and narrow valleys where traditional anti-tank guns faltered. U.S. ordnance distributed over 400,000 units by war's end, with crews trained to target vulnerable spots like tracks, engine decks, or rear plating. In the Bulge, where German Panthers and Tigers dominated open fields, the bazooka's portability turned infantry and dismounted tankers into tank killers. At Noville, armored infantry from the 10th Armored Division's Team de Sobry fired volleys from house windows, their rockets ricocheting off turrets until one pierced a gun slit, freezing the mechanism. This technological edge, simple yet effective, disrupted German momentum and protected exposed flanks. Beyond the weapon itself, tactics evolved rapidly under fire. Standard doctrine called for 2-man teams unloader, 1 gunner roto operate from concealed positions, holding fire until ranges closed to 100 yards for accuracy. In the Ardennes' fog-shrouded terrain, crews adapted by stalking vehicles using snowdrifts and rubble for cover. At Krinkelt-Rocherath, bazooka teams from the 2nd Infantry Division ambushed advancing Panthers, coordinating with Shermans to immobilize lead tanks and create bottlenecks. Improvisations emerged when rockets failed. Soldiers poured gasoline on engine decks and ignited them with thermite grenades, or jammed crowbars into tracks for mobility kills. Near Lossheimer Graben, infantrymen from the 394th Regiment employed shoot-and-scoot methods, firing from foxholes then relocating to evade counterfire. These adaptations countered the German reliance on heavy armor without infantry support, turning narrow roads into kill zones. In one engagement at Stoumont, dismounted tankers from the 740th Tank Battalion supported infantry bazooka strikes, their combined efforts halting Kampfgruppe Piper's spearhead. Such tactical flexibility prevented breakthroughs that could have encircled entire divisions, like the threatened 101st Airborne at Bastogne. Human stories anchored this resilience. Sergeant Horace Thornhill, a tank commander in the 10th Armored, dismounted his disabled Sherman near Noville on December 19th. With his crew, he grabbed a bazooka from a fallen infantryman and flanked a German Panther advancing through the mist. Firing from 50 yards, they struck the rear, erupting the tank in flames and scattering its crew. Private First Class Ed Stambaugh, part of a mixed armored infantry team, endured sub-zero temperatures in a basement outpost. When a Panzer IV rolled overhead, crushing their foxhole, Stambaugh emerged to fire a single rocket into its underbelly, forcing retreat. These men, often replacements with minimal training, drew on raw determination. Lieutenant Charles Powers of the 740th led his platoon through fog at Stoumont Station, personally manning a 75mm gun while directing bazooka fire from supporting infantry. His actions destroyed 3 Panthers in minutes, inspiring weary troops to hold the line. Across the front, soldiers like these farmers, clerks, and students turned warriors ushered cigarettes in lulls, their breath freezing as they planned ambushes. This human resourcefulness, blending courage with quick thinking, transformed potential routes into stubborn defenses. Yet these efforts relied equally on command decisions that amplified their impact. Leadership on the American side channeled this ingenuity into cohesive action during the Ardennes crisis. General Omar Bradley, commanding the 12th Army Group, initially dismissed early reports of the attack as spoiling actions, but swiftly adjusted. From his headquarters in Luxembourg City, he redirected Patton's 3rd Army northward on December 19th, a maneuver Patton executed with characteristic speed. At the divisional level, Leaders like Colonel William Roberts of Combat Command B, 10th Armored Division, dispersed his tanks into small teams around Bastogne, emphasizing flexible defense over rigid lines. Roberts instructed crews to integrate bazookas with tank guns, creating layered ambushes. In the 740th Tank Battalion, Lieutenant Colonel Harry Rubel authorized improvised tactics, allowing sergeants to command ad hoc groups. These decisions empowered frontline innovation. For instance, at Longville, Captain James Leach coordinated bazooka teams from the 9th Armored Infantry to cover retreating Shermans, destroying 4 German tanks in a rearguard action. Eisenhower reinforced this by transferring the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions to the front, their commanders stressing aggressive patrols. McAuliffe's stand at Bastogne exemplified this. He rationed ammunition but encouraged bazooka use in close assaults, turning the encircled town into a hedgehog defense. Such leadership fostered trust, enabling soldiers to adapt without micromanagement. Reports from the 4th Armored Division highlight how battalion commanders like Creighton Abrams led charges personally, his tank Thunderbolt spearheading the relief of Bastogne, while bazooka-equipped infantry cleared flanking threats. This decentralized command structure contrasted with German rigidity, amplifying U.S. resourcefulness in the fog of war. From the German perspective, these tactics elicited stunned reactions as their offensive faltered. Field Marshal Model anticipated quick breakthroughs, but reports from the 5th Panzer Army described infernal rocket fire from hidden Americans, halting columns in defiles. At La Glaise, SS Obersturmbannführer Herr Joachim Peiper's Kampfgruppe encountered bazooka ambushes that destroyed 28 vehicles, forcing him to abandon heavy equipment. German tankers, accustomed to superior armor, expressed horror at the weapon's penetration. One captured Panther commander recounted how a single rocket ignited his ammunition, ejecting him amid flames. Interrogated POWs admitted underestimating U.S. infantry resolve, laughing initially at the toy rockets until losses mounted. Von Manteuffel noted in dispatches the shock of American logistics sustaining resistance, with bazooka resupplies arriving via airdrops despite encirclement. In the north, Dietrich's SS units, bogged in mud, faced coordinated strikes that severed supply lines, leading to fuel shortages and retreats. Soldiers from the 12th Volksgrenadier Division described the terror of close-range bazooka hits, which pierced side armor and caused catastrophic fires. This reactive stance eroded morale. By December 23rd, German advances ground to a halt, their commanders horrified by the failure to encircle major U.S. forces. The bazooka's role in these defenses underscored a broader underestimation of Allied adaptability, turning initial gains into costly stalemates. These converging angles built toward the battle's pivotal confrontations. Fog clung to the Ardennes valleys on December 18, 1944, as German panzers pressed their advantage. Near Neuville, Belgium, elements of the 10th Armored Division's Combat Command B, under Colonel William Roberts, faced the 2nd Panzer Division's vanguard. American Shermans, outnumbered and outgunned, rolled into defensive positions amid shattered farmhouses. Tank Commander Captain Charles Gordon positioned his M4 near a crossroads, his crew scanning for the telltale clank of tracks. Suddenly, a Panther emerged from the mist at 200 yards, its 75mm gun swiveling. Gordon's gunner fired first, but the shell glanced off. As the German tank advanced, dismounted infantry from Team Desabris grabbed bazookas. Private First Class Oscar Grimes knelt behind a stone wall, loader handing him a rocket. At 75 yards, Grimes fired while the projectile struck the Panther's track, shearing it clean. The tank slewed sideways, exposed. Gordon's Sherman finished it with a hull shot, flames erupting from the turret. This pattern repeated across the front. In the twin villages of Krinkelt-Rocherath, the 2nd Infantry Division's 38th Regiment held against the 12th SS Panzer Division. On December 17th, as fog lifted slightly, German Panthers charged the American lines. Sergeant William Soderman, a bazooka gunner from Company K 9th Infantry, waited in a ditch. When a lead Panther closed to 100 feet, he stood and fired, hitting the turret ring and jamming it. Though wounded by return fire, his action stalled the column, allowing artillery from Elsenborn Ridge to pound the exposed vehicles. Nearby tank crews from the 741st Tank Battalion integrated with infantry, using bazookas for close protection. One Sherman, disabled by an 88mm hit, became a pillbox. Its crew dismounted with bazookas, ambushing flanking Tigers. Southward near Longville, Remnants of the 9th Armored Division's Combat Command R fought a delaying action on December 19th. Captain James Leach's task force, including M4s and M10 tank destroyers, faced the Panzer Lehr Division. As German Mark IVs advanced along Route N15, Leach's men improvised. Bazooka teams hid in roadside hedges, targeting engine decks at point-blank range. In one volley, 3 rockets struck a lead tank, igniting its fuel. The column halted, vulnerable to overhead fire from 105mm howitzers. This stand bought time for the 101st Airborne to dig in at Bastogne, preventing immediate encirclement of the road hub. At Stoumont on December 20th, Kampfgruppe Piper's Spearhead O, the 1st SS Panzer Regimento, pushed toward the Ambelave River. U.S. forces from the 30th Infantry Division and 740th Tank Battalion countered. Lieutenant Colonel Harold Rubel's tanks arrived piecemeal, but crews adapted swiftly. Sergeant Albert Durago, an infantryman attached to the armor, manned a bazooka alone after his partner fell. Spotting 2 Panthers maneuvering through the village, Durago fired from a barn loft, disabling the first with a track hit at 50 yards. As the second turned, he reloaded and struck its side armor, causing an internal explosion. This halted Piper's advance, stranding his column without fuel. Supporting Shermans from Company A then engaged, their 76mm guns piercing the immobilized hulls. These engagements intensified around Bastogne. By December 21st, the 101st Airborne, bolstered by the 10th Armored's Team Cherry and Team O'Hara, faced encirclement by the 26th Volksgrenadier and 2nd Panzer Divisions. At Marvy, southeast of the town, bazooka teams from the 327th Glider Infantry Regiment ambushed probing panzers. Lieutenant Thomas Nyland coordinated with a nearby Sherman destroyer, directing rocket fire to the rear of advancing vehicles. One hit detonated a Panther's ammunition, scattering shrapnel and forcing retreat. In the northwest, near Champs, similar tactics repelled assaults, with crews using captured German wire to rig bazooka mines or rockets buried nose up, triggered by tripwires. Improvisations extended to urban fighting. In Bastogne's rubble-strewn streets, tankers welded bazooka tubes to Sherman hulls for added firepower. At a key intersection on December 22nd, such a modified M4 from the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion engaged a Tiger Y. The bazooka round, fired at 30 yards, penetrated the lower glasses, igniting the engine. This prevented a breakthrough that could have split the perimeter. As skies cleared on December 23rd, Allied air power joined the fray, but ground tenacity had already blunted the German thrust. Clear weather on December 23rd allowed Allied aircraft to dominate the skies over the Ardennes. P-47 Thunderbolts from the 9th Air Force strafed German columns, their 50-caliber machine guns shredding trucks and half-tracks. At Elsenborn Ridge, this air support bolstered U.S. defenses. The 99th Infantry Division, reinforced by the 1st Infantry Division, held the high ground against repeated assaults from the 12th SS Panzer Division. Bazooka teams from the 393rd Regiment positioned along the ridge's slopes, waiting for armor to crest. In one clash near Bietigheim-Bach, Sergeant Richard Cowan manned a bazooka after his machine gun jammed. Firing 3 rockets, he disabled 2 Panthers at 75 yards, buying time for artillery to saturate the area. This prevented a northern breakthrough that could have encircled the entire U.S. V Corps. Further south, the relief of Bastogne marked a critical shift. Patton's 4th Armored Division, spearheaded by Combat Command A under Colonel Wendell Blanchard, advanced through heavy snow on December 26th. Near Assenois, Lieutenant Charles Bogus's Company C, 37th Tank Battalion led the charge. His Sherman Cobra King pushed forward with bazooka-equipped infantry from the 326th Engineer Battalion riding atop. German 80mm guns opened fire, but flanking bazooka strikes from dismounted troops hit the emplacements, silencing 2. At 16:45 hours, Bogus linked up with the 101st Airborne's outpost, breaking the siege. This corridor allowed supplies to flow, averting the encirclement of 4 divisions, the 101st, elements of the 9th and 10th Armored, and attached infantry. At L'Église, Piper's isolated Kampfgruppe faced annihilation. On December 24th, U.S. forces from the 3rd Armored Division closed in. Bazooka teams infiltrated the village under cover of darkness, targeting stranded King Tigers. Sergeant Paul Herbert from Task Force Lovelady fired a rocket into a Tiger's exhaust at 40 yards, starting a fire that forced evacuation. By morning, Piper ordered retreat on foot, abandoning 135 vehicles. This collapse stranded the 6th Panzer Army's northern flank, preventing encirclement of the 82nd Airborne near St. Vith. In the center, near Houghton on the Orthe River, the 3rd Armored Division's Combat Command B repelled the 116th Panzer Division. On December 24, tankers under Major Olin Brewster used bazookas in tandem with M36 tank destroyers. In a narrow defile, bazooka fire immobilized lead panzers, creating a barrier of wreckage. Artillery from the 289th Field Artillery then obliterated the jammed column, halting advances that threatened to surround the 84th Infantry Division. These actions culminated in the failure of German objectives. By December 28th, counterattacks from Montgomery's northern forces and Patton's southern thrust squeezed the Bulge. U.S. 7 Corps recaptured Houghton, while the 2nd Armored Division destroyed the 2nd Panzer Division near Celles, capturing General Heinrich Freiherr von L. Titwitz. Bazooka tactics in these mopping-up operations neutralized pockets of resistance, ensuring no major U.S. units remained encircled. The tide had turned, leaving scars on the landscape and in the ranks. Snow blanketed the Ardennes fields in late December 1944, muffling the echoes of gunfire as the Battle of the Bulge subsided. German forces, depleted of fuel and ammunition, withdrew eastward under relentless Allied pressure. The 6th Panzer Army, once poised to split the front, left behind smoldering wrecks over 800 tanks and assault guns destroyed or abandoned. In La Glaise alone, 40 King Tigers sat immobilized, their crews fleeing on foot through knee-deep drifts. U.S. engineers from the 291st Engineer Combat Battalion dynamited bridges to hinder retreat, while infantry mopped up pockets of resistance. Casualties told a grim tale. American losses totaled 89,246, with 19,246 killed, 23,554 captured, and 46,446 wounded. German figures ranged from 63,000 to 98,000, including 12,000 dead. Their offensive shattered beyond repair. Bastogne's relief on December 26 symbolized the turnaround. Supplies poured in via truck convoys, replenishing the 101st Airborne's depleted stocks. Medics treated frostbite and shrapnel wounds in makeshift aid stations, evacuating the severely injured by C-47 aircraft once airfields cleared. The 4th Armored Division, having lost 50 tanks in the drive, rotated units for rest, their crews sharing stories of bazooka saves around campfires. Northward, the 1st Army reclaimed St. Vith on January 23, 1945, after house-to-house fighting that cost 500 American lives. Captured documents revealed Hitler's fury at the failure, ordering executions for perceived cowardice among his officers. Strategic shifts followed swiftly. Eisenhower transferred the U.S. 9th Army to Montgomery's command on December 20th, stabilizing the northern shoulder. This allowed Bradley to focus southward, where Patton's forces expanded the corridor to Bastogne. Air power, unleashed with clear skies, flew 17,000 sorties by January's end, dropping 2,000 tons of bombs on German supply lines. The Luftwaffe's Operation Bodenplatte, on January 1st, an attempt to cripple Allied airfields, backfired, allising 300 planes to anti-aircraft fire and P-51 Mustangs. U.S. industrial might resupplied the front. 1,400 replacement tanks arrived by February, dwarfing German production hampered by bombed factories. Psychological impacts rippled through the ranks. American morale surged with the victory, soldiers dubbing bazookas stovepipes in affectionate slang. Interrogations of German POWs uncovered despair. One sergeant from the 2nd SS Panzer Division admitted the shock of American tenacity, expecting collapse after initial breakthroughs. Reports from von Rundstedt's headquarters described depleted divisions, some at 30% strength, unable to mount further attacks. The Malmedy massacre's revelation fueled U.S. resolve. Eisenhower issued orders to take no SS prisoners in retaliation, though rarely enforced. Destruction scarred the landscape. Belgian towns like Malmedy and Stavelot lay in ruins, 200 civilians killed in reprisals. Forests, once dense, stood as splintered stumps from artillery barrages. U.S. Graves registration units buried the dead in temporary cemeteries, identifying bodies by dog tags amid frozen ground. Logistical recovery began. Depots near Liege, spared from capture, distributed 3 million gallons of fuel. Engineers rebuilt 140 bridges, restoring rail lines by mid-January. These immediate reckonings paved the way for broader consequences on the war's trajectory. The Ardennes offensive delayed Allied plans by 6 weeks, pushing the Rhine crossing from January to March 1945. German reserves, committed to the Bulge, left the Eastern Front exposed. Soviet armies launched their Vistula-Oder offensive on January 12, advancing 300 miles toward Berlin. Hitler's gamble cost irreplaceable manpower. Light Panzer divisions reduced to skeletons, their equipment littering Belgian roads. U.S. production ramped up in response. Factories in Detroit and Pittsburgh churned out 2,500 Shermans monthly, while bazooka output surged to 20,000 units per month. Tactical lessons integrated quickly. Army manuals updated to emphasize combined arms, with bazookas standard in infantry platoons. Psychological scars lingered. Veterans of the 106th Infantry Division, reformed after heavy losses, carried the weight of surrender. Citations for valor poured in. Over 600 medals of honor awarded across the theater, many for bazooka actions like Sergeant Jonah Kelly's at Kesternich, where he single-handedly destroyed a pillbox despite wounds. German command fractured. Von Rundstedt resigned in March, disillusioned. Captured generals, including von Manteuffel, acknowledged in post-war interviews the shock of American adaptability, crediting improvised tactics for thwarting encirclement. Reconstruction efforts transformed the region. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers cleared 200 miles of roads, removing 500,000 tons of debris. Belgian civilians, displaced by fighting, returned to rebuild under Marshall Plan precursors. War crimes trials addressed atrocities. The Malmedy perpetrators faced justice at Dachau in 1946, with 43 death sentences handed down, though many commuted. Economic tolls mounted. U.S. expenditures for the battle exceeded $1.3 billion, yet bolstered homefront resolve through bond drives. Strategically, the victory accelerated the war's end. With the Bulge reduced by January 25, Allied forces crossed the Rhine at Remagen on March 7, capturing the Ludendorff Bridge intact. Patton's Third Army raced to the Elbe, linking with Soviets on April 25. Hitler's suicide on April 30 followed, Germany surrendering on May 8. The bazooka's role influenced post-war designs. Its principles shaped the RPG-2 and later anti-tank weapons. Human costs echoed longest. Families received telegrams notifying losses, while survivors battled frostbite scars and memories of fog-shrouded ambushes. The battle's ferocity, fought in 20th temperatures, claimed more cold-weather casualties than combat. In some units, 8607 non-battle injuries reported. This episode in the Ardennes illuminated enduring lessons in warfare and resilience. The Ardennes offensive, etched into the annals of World War II as the Battle of the Bulge, stands as a profound testament to the limits of desperation and the power of adaptability. In those frozen weeks of December 1944 and January 1945, Hitler's final bid for reversal exposed the fragility of overextended ambition. German forces, once the architects of blitzkrieg triumphs, found their armored might checked by American resolve and ingenuity. The bazooka, a modest invention born from necessity, symbolized broader themes: how technology, when wielded with creativity, could level disparities in firepower. U.S. tank crews, facing superior machines, turned forests and villages into arenas of asymmetric warfare, their improvised tactics saving divisions from encirclement and altering the campaign's course. This battle reshaped warfare's understanding. It underscored logistics as the silent Arbitero-American supply chains, resilient despite chaos, outlasted German shortages. Cryptography and radar, though less visible here, supported the air resurgence that sealed the victory. For humanity, the episode revealed endurance's quiet heroism. Soldiers enduring sub-zero nights, civilians caught in crossfire, all woven into a tapestry of sacrifice. Over 200,000 casualties across both sides reminded of war's indiscriminate toll, fueling post-war reflections on mechanized conflict's dehumanizing scale. Historically, the Bulge accelerated Nazi Germany's collapse. Draining irreplaceable reserves, it hastened the Allied advance to the Rhine and beyond, contributing to VE Day on May 8, 1945. Technologically, it validated portable anti-tank weapons, influencing Cold War designs like the RPG series. Morally, acts like the Malmedy massacre highlighted the abyss of total war, informing Nuremberg's pursuit of justice. Yet, amid the statistics and strategies, the event speaks to individual agency. Resourceful men armed with bazookas and determination defied encirclement's shadow. Their stories endure, a reminder that in warfare's fog, innovation and spirit can bend fate. The Ardennes, now peaceful hills, bears silent witness to this enduring truth.